Hi, welcome to Starz Recapped. Today I am going to explain the Part 4 of the American fantasy television series called The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. Thank you very much that you are liking our Rings of Power series so much. That is why today we are going to explain its Part 4, and those who are watching this series for the first time, they should also stay with this video till the end. You will also fall in love with it because this series is so good, so let's get started. Do you remember when Galadriel asked to Adar about Sauron in Part 2? Adar told Galadriel that, "I killed Sauron with my own hands because his oppression was increasing on orcs more and more." But how did a simple Adar accomplish this impossible task? Sauron was preparing the army, and he tells the orc that a golden tomorrow is coming soon, for which I need a superpower, which is not just limited to the body, but is beyond it. A power that will enable us to enslave the people of Middle-earth. But for this, hundreds of you will have to sacrifice, and the history of the new world will be written with your blood. But they know that Sauron is going to use them all as scapegoats for his own purposes. But Sauron tells them, "Remember, the elves reject you, and in the eyes of humans, you all are an ugly and ignorant community." Then an orc attacks him from behind. But Sauron kills him brutally and angrily tells him that I am your last hope and the first step towards a golden future. Then Adar goes and brings his crown, picks it up and tells everyone that Sauron is our Dark Lord, and then he comes to him for its coronation. But during the coronation ceremony, Adar kills Sauron at the first chance he gets. After which all the orcs attack Sauron, beat and tears him to pieces. Today, Orc finally took revenge for the atrocities committed against him, but then a very bright light comes out from Sauron, due to which the whole area freezes. And when Adar regains consciousness, everyone else had fallen unconscious. And Adar sees that Sauron's body has disappeared from here. Then everyone else says, "Long live Adar, our new king." And Adar tells them that, "My children, from now on you all are free." But then we see that Sauron's blood leaks through mountain cracks and slowly flows down into the depths of the mountains and reaches a cave. And then after a while, he grows again. And when a rat comes near him, he absorbs the rat into his body. And having absorbed other organisms as well, he soon begins to move outwards. But when he comes out of the mountains, he is very weak. Just then, a woman is passing by. And Sauron takes advantage of this opportunity and gets into her car. And soon, he absorbs that woman into his body as well. And when he is completed transform into his form, he comes out of the car, but his form has changed, meaning Sauron has returned in a new form. And then, after wandering in the forests for a few days, as he is heading towards the city, a convoy of humans is coming from there. And they tell him not to go in that direction because the orcs has created chaos everywhere. We are also running to save our lives. Then Sauron asks a human, "What is this symbol on your neck?" To which he explained, "This is the symbol of our human king from the south, who is now dead, and we were his servants. That is why I have it. Looking into your eyes, it seems that you have endured a lot. We're currently sailing across the ocean. I've heard there's a thriving human kingdom there called Númenor. If you want, you can also come with us." And then we see that Sauron soon joins them on their sea voyage. But then one night we see that there is a huge water monster beneath their ship, which Sauron soon realizes as well. And when the demon attacks the ship, chaos ensues on the ship. And instead of saving the old man, Sauron takes his symbol and flees. But then the ship is destroyed by a demon attack, and Sauron is thrown into the water, and then he sees the demon, who looks very hideous. But Sauron soon sends the demon away from here, and then he himself comes upon the broken pieces of the ship, and some of the survivors of the ship, after joining the parts of the ship, sit on it. And then, shortly after this, we see that they find Galadriel while wandering in the sea. And then Sauron says, "We are brought together by the waves of fortune. Let us see where they take us." The entire story of the series after this is seen in parts 1, 2, and 3, because this is where Sauron takes the Galadriel under his complete control. And Galadriel gets so entangled in his words that she trusts him and takes him straight with her in Lindon, among her people. Because Galadriel is an elf, and all elves live in Lindon and a region in Middle-earth, and Sauron knows full well that only an elf can create that superpower, one that is not limited to the body, but also to the whole body, and that power is beyond its limits. That is why Sauron creates that superpower through them, unaware of which great elves like Galadriel and Celebrimbor together create that power in the form of 3 rings. But as soon as Galadriel realizes that Halbrand is Sauron, Sauron traps he in a web of dreams and runs away from here and comes back to the south, that is now Mordor, because by now Adar would have completely destroyed and covered the south with volcanic ashes. Because the orcs burn in the sunlight, Adar has spread darkness here forever. And then here we see that Galadriel and Elrond with that superpower come straight from the Eregion to their king in Lindon. But the king says, "First tell me about that treacherous Halbrand," to which Galadriel replies, "He is Sauron." The king becomes furious and says to Galadriel, "How could you make such a huge mistake?" To which Galadriel replies, "I was deceived." But the king says, "Give me those 3 rings quickly." But Elrond says, "They could be very dangerous to use since Sauron built them. He must have done something to them." But Galadriel says, "Sauron hasn't touched them, so they must be fine." But Elrond does not agree. But the king says, "Give me those rings, because soon the last leaf of our sacred tree will also fall. And if this sacred tree of ours dies, all light will be extinguished, along with which the entire elf race will also be destroyed. That's why we have to save Middle-earth first, along with ourselves, because if the elves are gone, then all the people of Middle-earth will fall into darkness, because now our enemy has returned. That is why those rings are the last hope, not just for us, but for the entire Middle-earth. We will have to drink this poison. So give me the rings. This is your king's order." But Elrond doesn't like this, so instead of giving them the rings, he jumps into the water below. On this, king says, "Catch him and bring him back." Whereas here in south, that is Mordor, we see that due to the volcanic eruption, the orcs have taken over this place. And now the king of entire south has become Adar, and he has made all the human here his slaves. And then we see that Sauron also joins these humans here by becoming a slave, and any human who refuses to bow before Adar is killed. And it is declared, "This is no longer the south, it has become Mordor. Now either bow down to Adar or be cut." Then the orcs' army present the king of Middle-earth before Adar and say, "He has come to kneel before you." However, Adar doesn't yet know that this is Sauron. He still considers him the Halbrand, the king of humans, and tells him, "My children conquered this piece of land, and drove away the elves and Númenor's armies who came here to rescue the humans, so now there is no one to stop us." On this, Halbrand says, "Elf has now developed a superpower that is not limited to the body, but goes beyond that. With that power they will soon destroy all of you and make you their slaves, and that power will soon pass to Sauron, for Sauron has returned." To which Adar immediately says, "Tell me about him or you will be killed right now." But Halbrand says, "If I am killed, that secret will also die with me." To which Adar says, "Then you will beg for death." And then he throws him into the jail and tells his orcs, "Sauron can never return, he's dead." Meanwhile, Sauron sees that these people have also tied a very dangerous wolf here. Then Adar's lackey comes and says, "Tell me whatever you know about Sauron." But he doesn't tell anything, to which the sycophant replies, "You are too close to pain." And then after they leave, Sauron picks up that piece of meat, but he doesn't eat it himself but gives it to the wolf, thus taking the wolf under his control. While here in Lindon we see elf soldiers searching everywhere for Elrond. That's when we see Elf Master Círdan here, and then in the evening, when Master Círdan comes back to his room, he finds Elrond there, who tells him, "Master Círdan, you are our last hope now, as you are one of the wisest elves, and the elf race is going through a lot of trouble right now." To which Círdan replies, "You probably brought something with you." While here in Lindon, the Emperor tells his soldiers, "Go immediately and tell Celebrimbor that Halbrand is Sauron." Then 2 soldiers of the king also come and tell him, "We searched everywhere, but we could not find Elrond anywhere." Then Galadriel says, "Elrond's goal is not to escape, but to destroy those rings. That's why he might have gone to someone he trusted, someone who is very intelligent." While here, Elrond tells Master Círdan that these rings are very dangerous. To which Master says, "I know the art of Celebrimbor. He can create such power. And as you said, these rings haven't been touched by Sauron, so it's possible that they don't have Sauron's influence." But Elrond goes on to say, "Sauron is very clever. The rings may be his pawns, the first steps in a grand plan that will lead us to the end. That is why we must destroy them." But the Master says, "With this, the elf will also come to an end." But then we see that King and Galadriel also arrive here with their soldiers. But Galadriel says, "Your Majesty, let me speak to Elrond first." And then Galadriel comes right in and says to Elrond, "You're my best friend, so I came here to talk with you. If I fail in this, then the king will make you bow down to the height. That's why trust me. Don't you remember that we made 3 rings for this purpose, so that there would be balance? And my heart says that this is right. But Elrond says, you did your duty, and I did mine. Galadriel then notices that the rings are not there because Master Círdan has already taken the rings and left. And after going into the middle of the sea, as soon as the rings are thrown, those rings fall back into the boat. And then Master understands the powers of those rings. While here in Mordor we see Adar come to Sauron and tell him, I have freed your humans peoples, just as you wished. Now tell me, where is Sauron? To which he says, Sauron has returned in a new form, but I do not know what form he has returned in. To which Adar replies, what use are you to me now? To which Halbrand replies, I have the elf's trust, so set me free and I will go to the elves and find Sauron, so that you can send your army and finish them off because they are still weak. To which Adar replies, you'll have to bow down to me for that. And then, having no other way, Halbrand lies down at the feet of Adar and bows before him, after which Adar frees him and he goes away from here. But we see that he had left the wolves free, who finish off that sycophant as soon as he arrives. And then here, we see the elf's sacred tree at Lindon dying, and the king say, the days of us elves in Middle-earth are over. But then Master Círdan comes here with those rings and gives them to the king. One is worn by him, one is given to the Galadriel, and one is worn by the king. And then soon we see that through the power of the 3 rings, the sacred tree begins to heal itself, and the elves' golden future returns as their light has returned. But Elrond don't like it at all, but the other elves are very happy with it. While here in Eregion, another elf kingdom, we see the king, Celebrimbor, who is told, there's someone who came to visit you. And when Celebrimbor goes outside and looks, he sees Halbrand, that is Sauron. While here we see that the effects of the devastation and volcanoes of the south are now reaching the mountain kingdom of dwarfs, Khazad-dûm, while dwarfs used a plow to bring sunlight in, since all their cities are inside mountains, where all the crops, etc. grow. Then we see dwarfs Prince Durin and his wife Disa in the market, who are shopping here. But then the ground starts shaking, because due to the eruption of that volcano, earthquakes are happening here too, due to which the crystals and the paths through which light comes in are destroyed, and darkness prevails inside the mountains. And here in the south we see Isildur's horse, but then the orcs also see the horse, and they start gathering around it so that they can capture it. But the horse senses the danger beforehand, attacks them, and runs away from there. And the orcs can't chase it for long, because the horse heads for a dark forest where there's no returning. But this horse keeps running continuously inside the dark forest, and then after a while, it stops and comes near a cave. And when the horse goes inside the cave, there are dead bodies lying all around. But the horse keeps sniffing and comes near Isildur, which is alive, but is trapped in a spider's web. And then soon we see that the spider's babies start coming out of the eggs, and out of fear the horse breaks the spider's web, which frees Isildur's hands. But then the orc tied in front of it also attacks him, and both of them start fighting with each other. Then the spiders also wake up, and the orc tries to kill Isildur, but then a spider comes from behind and kills the orc. But Isildur escapes from it, but then a big spider comes from behind and clings to the Isildur and quickly brings it down. But Isildur catches it in its jaws, throws it away, and quickly flees from there with his horse. While back in Lindon, Galadriel tells his king, Sauron doesn't just want to rule Middle-earth, rather, he wants to control the thoughts and desires of all his subjects, for which he needs these rings, not an army. And he can't make them like Celebrimbor, so now his target will be Erigion's Celebrimbor. The ring then shows Galadriel some glimpses. So Galadriel says to the king, I must go to Eregion, because this ring is showing me something. To which king says, these rings have shown me something too. Perhaps they are glimpses of coming tomorrow. I have seen mountains collapse and rivers dry up. Meanwhile, back in Eregion, Sauron, still in his Halbrand form, waiting for Celebrimbor. Then, Celebrimbor's soldier Myrddania comes and tells him, Celebrimbor does not want to meet you, so you should leave from here. To which Halbrand says, he's a good friend of mine. I'll stay here and wait for him. Maybe he'll change his mind. And then, when Myrddania goes and tells all this to Celebrimbor, Celebrimbor says, let him do whatever he wants. I won't meet him. Whereas here in the forest we see the same soldiers, whom the king had sent to Celebrimbor to tell the truth about Sauron, but someone killed them on the way. Meaning, even Celebrimbor doesn't know yet that Halbrand is Sauron. While here in Dwarfs' kingdom Khazad-dûm, Disa tells her king, we can talk to the mountains with telepathy, maybe we can find a way. And then, that is why when Disa and her companions try to talk to these mountains, they start vibrating again, and the remaining light also gets blocked. Now there is complete darkness in the mountains, The king says, so Disa goes and tells her husband Durin everything and says, we cannot consider ourselves safe until we are sure that Sauron is dead. And then we see a huge, giant kite troll coming in, and all the orcs are really scared of him. And then when he comes in front of Adar, Adar says to him, you are welcome. You are just what we needed. To which he says, where is Sauron? Meaning, he also hates Sauron. While here in Lindon, Galadriel visits Elrond and asks him to accompany her to a region in search of Sauron. But Elrond refuses, saying, by wearing those rings you have all sided with Sauron, so don't involve me in this anymore. After which Galadriel leaves from here. But when Elrond comes to Master Círdan, Círdan explains, things are not as they appear, for we still do not fully understand these rings, but just look at the effect its power will have on everything. If it falls into Sauron's hands, then Sauron will have control over everything, and there will be devastation all around. That's why these rings should only be in the hands of elves. And now Elrond understands what Master Círdan had said, that those who wear the rings are not its enemies, but its friends. While here at Eregion, we see Celebrimbor who asks about the Halbrand, to which Myrddania explains, he's still out there waiting for you, but it's really cold tonight. And then the weather gets worse. So Celebrimbor comes to Halbrand himself and tells him, if you don't leave here, you'll have to be removed forcibly. To which Halbrand says, didn't you talk to Galadriel? To which Celebrimbor says, I haven't spoken to King since he went to Lindon. Then Halbrand says, your rings were successful, but the king did not tell you about it. It has been like this for centuries. Great artists like you put their blood and sweat into their art, and people like your king take advantage of that art and forget about you, and that's where Celebrimbor takes him in. And then Halbrand walks in and says to Celebrimbor, your rings did a wonderful job. They saved Lindon and the entire elf race. That's when Celebrimbor gets very emotional about this great creation of his. Then Halbrand tells him that I have come to you with a request. You saved the elf species, but humans are in big trouble. That's why I want you to make the same rings for humans as you made for elves. On which Celebrimbor says that this is impossible. Humans are very greedy, and are far more likely to go astray than elves. That's why I can't make rings for them. And even if I tried, the dwarf won't give us any more mithril metal. Then Halbrand says that I want to tell you my truth. Because when the Galadriel found out about me, they abandoned me. That's why I don't want to repeat this mistake with you. There are some forces in this world that are above evil, and sometimes they send their help in the form of an angel. Then Halbrand walks into the fire and emerges in a new form, and Celebrimbor realizes that he is the angel. And now Halbrand tells Celebrimbor that right now, the future of all of Middle-earth is at stake. Darkness is going to spread everywhere. All kingdoms will be destroyed. Neither humans, nor elves, nor dwarfs will survive. That is why I have come to show you the path of thinking and understanding. Upon which Celebrimbor bows down to Halbrand, but still does not know that he is Sauron. And now Celebrimbor is considering him as a messenger. While here in Lindon, we see that the Elf King sends Elrond and Galadriel to Eregion to meet Celebrimbor. While here in Dwarf's kingdom, Khajad-dûm, we see that Celebrimbor has sent a message to Prince Durin, calling him to his kingdom Eregion. And then soon, we see Durin arriving in Eregion with his wife. And Celebrimbor says that with the help of the mithril you gave us, we were able to create that superpower in the form of rings, and with its help, we were able to save the whole elf species. That's why now we also want to help you. Just as those rings have healed our sacred tree, may your mountains be healed as well. But for that, we will need mithril metal from you. To which Durin says that I will have to talk to my father about this, because the final decision will be his. While here in the forest, we see that Isildur is wandering in the forest with his horse, and during this time he finds a girl in the forest. And seeing her alone and distressed, Isildur starts taking her along with him. Then both of them continue traveling, but after going a little further they find an old man who has been robbed by the orcs. As Isildur goes to help him, the old man and his people attack him from all sides, throw the girl away and take away Isildur's horse as well. But then suddenly arrows start raining down on them, which turn out to be from the brave elf soldier Arondir, and he quickly kills and finishes them all. But still these robbers succeed in taking away Isildur's horse. And then Arondir tells them that these were forest dwellers, who are slaves of Adar. The danger is increasing here, so Arondir takes both of them with him to his hideout, where those remaining brave humans live, who till now had not bowed before Adar because they did not accept slavery. While here in Dwarf's kingdom Khazad-dûm, we see that the people are facing food shortage. That is why he comes to his king and tells him that the royal treasury should be opened for the people, because they are dying of hunger. Ever since the sunlight has gone off, crops are not growing here. Then King's son Durin also comes to him and tells him that Celebrimbor is claiming that he can solve our problem with the help of the rings, but for that we will have to give him our mythal metal. But I don't know why. I don't feel his intentions are right. While here we see Isildur, whom Arondir tells that your father and the rest of the Númenor army have returned to Númenor. They thought you were dead. Then when Arondir comes out, he finds Theo's condition unwell, because after the death of his mother Bronwyn, he has changed a lot, and always thinks about taking revenge for his mother from the orcs and forest dwellers. Then after this, when Isildur comes to Theo, Theo also tells him that if you want your horse, then come with me at night. I know the whereabouts of those forest dwellers. And then soon after nightfall, we see that both of them enter the forest without telling anyone, and Isildur sees his horse and immediately goes to him. But the forest dwellers become suspicious of them. Then Theo tries to draw their attention towards himself, but then someone attacks them from all sides and starts killing all the forest dwellers brutally. And then in the end, some huge creature comes and takes away Theo as well. While here in Eregion, we see that Celebrimbor has gone all in and is now making new rings for dwarfs. But the mythal metal in the hand of Halbrand, that is Sauron, puts it in those rings with his own hands after reciting some of his spells. Whereas here we see that Galadriel has also left with his military contingent towards Eregion with Elrond, and when these people arrive after a long journey, then they find a bridge broken. And when Elrond asks his soldier about another route, he tells him that if we go around, then the journey will take 2 weeks. But if we go through the southern hills, we will reach there sooner. But then the rings show something to Galadriel. So she says that we will not go through the south. It is very dangerous there. But Elrond says that the enemy would be lurking on both sides. That is why we will go from the south so that we can reach there quickly. But after a while it becomes night. But these people still continue their journey. But then they start hearing some strange ghostly sounds, due to which some soldiers get scared. Then here they find the same soldiers, whom the king had sent to Celebrimbor after giving the news about Sauron. Then some chains come and drag the soldier into a dark cave, and then we see a devilish corpse coming out of that cave, and then soon more dead bodies arrive here and surround them from all sides. But as soon as these people attack them, their attacks have no effect, because their weapons are ineffective on these dead bodies. Then Elrond says that we have to open the coffin near the cave. But then a chain begins to drag Galadriel into the cave as well, but Elrond cuts off its hand with the same sword he found in the coffin. And then, when these people take out weapons from the coffin and kill these dead people, then all these demonic dead people die one by. Galadriel asks how he did this, to which Elrond explains that according to the story, the swords that were buried with the dead bodies were the ones they would die with. And then the next morning we see that Theo is somewhere in an unknown place among the trees, and when he regains consciousness, he sees that there are many other people like him imprisoned there. Meanwhile, Arondir sees that a huge army has cleared the forest and made a path through it, and Arondir is also searching for Theo on this path. But then Isildur gets stuck in the swamp and slowly starts sinking. Arondir tries to save him, but soon Arondir too gets sucked into the swamp. Then his friend immediately brings a big piece of wood from the forest and throws it in the swamp. Then a huge demon comes out of it, but then Arondir comes out by ripping his stomach and says that there are many strange things in this forest which you have never seen before, so be careful. And then when the night falls, these people stop at a safe place in the forest, but there is danger at every step, and soon they are attacked by a monster, which is a very big tree. Arondir tries to calm him down, but then the other trees wake up and are enraged at the sight of the sword. But then Isildur says that this sword is not for cutting trees, but for cutting orcs. Then these trees say that a huge army of orcs came and cut down thousands of trees and trampled the forest under their feet. And by the time we got here, it was too late. Then the other tree gets angry and says that they are all the same. But then Arondir says, forgive us. But this tree says that new leaves come when it rains, but it takes centuries to forgive. But then Arondir says that I promise you that we will definitely stop this destruction, and the responsibility of protecting every tree here will be on our shoulders, on which the tree leaves them. And then soon they free Theo and the others too, because the trees were the one who had captured Theo and the others. And then after this, the trees leave these people and move further inside the forest. Meanwhile, the elves see that a large army of Adar is moving towards Eregion, seeing which Galadriel says that this is a declaration of war, because the orc army has entered our borders. Then Elrond says that we must convey this news to our king at any cost, but then the orcs come to know about them and start coming towards them. That's why Galadriel says you all go from here, I will stop them. And she gives her ring to Elrond. But then the orcs arrive here, but then Galadriel stands in their way and says that you foolish people have entered our borders. And soon she attacks these orcs with lightning speed and kills many of them at once. and soon she mounts her horse, but the orcs try to capture her, but the Galadriel begins killing them and continues killing the orcs by raining fire on them, giving Elrond and her companions a chance to escape from here. Meanwhile, Galadriel is now surrounded by these orcs, but she still doesn't give up. But then someone pulls her from behind, and soon Adar comes in front of her and says, "It's nice to meet you again, Galadriel." And with this, the fourth part of the Rings of Power ends here, because now, in its next part, the armies of elf and dwarfs will enter the battlefield. And when Sauron comes in his true form, will all these people be able to stop him or not? We will get to know all this in its next part. That is the final part of this series. But before that, what about this video? Like it, share it, and fill the comments with final part 5, and don't forget to give your valuable feedback on how you like this series. That's my explanation for the American TV series, The Rings of Power, Part 4. So guys, what do you think about the series? Write in the comment, subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notification, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.